the trailer for this movie, way back when this came out, I thought this looks like a cool, scary, creepy story. What could it be? And then I can't remember if I saw it at some point or if I had seen a story that had said there's like tentacles that come out of the mist.
Yeah.
That was where I was like, I'm out. Like, that doesn't sound cool and interesting. But little did I know.
Right.
Little did I know.
Well, don't get confused with the John Carpenter classic, The Fall. These are two totally different movies.
Yes.
Similar premise, sort of. Let's push the button. Welcome back to the Movie Dads Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
It's Kyle. Kyle, we're back. Episode number 61 of the Movie Dads Podcast.
Wow.
We're now in spooky season.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Spooky time.
It's fall.
It's holiday season.
We're drinking
baby.
pumpkin spice lattes.
Okay, one, you are not wrong. I have been rocking pumpkin spice creamer in my coffee for the last month. We can probably 2 months at this point. But I'm an eggnog guy for Christmas. Obvi. Hello.
Yeah.
Guess what I ran into at Walmart?
Halloween nog.
Halloween pumpkin spice nog. I've never heard of it. Obviously, I got it. It's awesome. I loved it. I enjoyed it. So
wonderful. So spooky season. We're here to bring you a barrage of spooky movies over the course of the next month and a half or so, until we get to the end of October. But episode 61, the 2007 sci-fi horror film Stephen King's The Mist, which is I can't believe you hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yep.
Guilty as charged. And he thought it was a totally different movie than it turned out to be.
Well, there's portions of the movie that I was like, I knew that's what it was, and that's why I didn't want to continue to. That's why I never finished the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know past that point totally changed. So it threw me off, and I was like, oh, I'm not watching that. And then I watched the whole thing and was like, holy.
Buckets. Its heads are falling off.
Did you hear that?
Is an action figure falling off your desk?
Yeah, my Darth Vader fell. You son of a gun. Or at least his helmet did.
R.I.P.
Bitch. I face palmed too hard. Giggity.
Anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube.
Love it.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please click that like and subscribe. Click the bell so you get alerts for when new episodes come out, which is on Wednesdays. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can also find us streaming on many different podcast networks such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, among many others. You can also find some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. But we're Movie Dads. We've got movie kids. It has been a pretty just normal, typical fall weekend in the old Erickson household. So softball all day Sunday, doubleheader again. That's going well. The weather's been pretty decent. A little bit of a cool snap came in on Sunday, but that was nice. And then, but this weekend, I'll be excited to talk about this next week. Reagan, my daughter, and I are going to Des Moines for a horror con, Nightmare Weekend Des Moines. It's also Animate Weekend, so there's a bunch of like animation stuff, voice actors and things like that. I won't probably be spending much time over at the Animate portion of the con, but we're going to go to the horror side of the con Friday and Saturday. She's got softball again Sunday, so we're not doing the full weekend, but pretty excited. Some pretty good horror movie actors, like 4 of like the 6 different guys that have played Jason are going to be there.
Oh, cool.
Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers, is going to be there from the original Halloween. Chris Sarandon
walks everywhere he goes.
Yeah, slowly. He's the shape.
Methodically.
Well, and then he did play him in a couple scenes, and then in the David Gordon Green requel. And then, who else is there? Chris Sarandon, who was in like Fright Night. He was Prince Humperdinck in Princess Bride. He's the voice of Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas.
Wow.
He's going to be there. A whole bunch of people, actually, so it's pretty neat. We're going to just, kind of go around and see the celebrities and kind of see what's so different, like the horror con versus the Comic Con. What are the booths going to be like? Is it going to be just horror artwork, or are they still going to have the normal kind of? Are they going to have comics? Are they going to have action figures, that kind of thing? So
yeah,
I'm going to take my Jason mask and I'm going to get all the different Jasons to sign it. So I'm going to try to get it signed by all of them. So it's basically Kane Hodder, who played Jason in 7, 8, 9, and X. So he played him 4 times. The guy who played him in 6, and then the guy who played him in Freddy vs. Jason, and then Derek Mears, who played him in the remake. They're all going to be there.
Oh,
so
cool.
I can try and get all 4 of them to sign it. That'd be kind of neat.
You should get signed up. One, that's cool. Have all of them sign the same mask. That's pretty fucking dope.
Yeah.
That Ninja Turtle horror poster would be cool to get signed by them too.
Would be. I got a couple things I want to get signed because I'm going to get, I have an action figure. Oh, it's actually right here. I have an action figure of Jason from the 7th one.
Oh,
and I'm going to get Kane Hodder to sign it.
Cool.
Because that was like the Jason I grew up with.
Dope.
So,
love that.
Anyway,
I love that. Good for
you.
Going
on. Thanks.
Outstanding. Same for us. Yeah, just usual fall. We got sports going 100 miles an hour now. Football is we had a game again, and guess who showed up across from us? The Harlem Globetrotters. They were back for round 2. We played them 1 week after we had already played them. So I wasn't expecting that, but my team did not completely roll over. We actually played them up until the end, and we lost by 1 score, which was like...
That's totally cool.
Yeah, it was good. It was like, okay, they didn't completely roll us.
Yeah. You're maturing as a team.
Yes. I mean, I will say I pretty much called out to our defense like every play they were running because they ran the same plays over and over. And I was like, they're in the bunch. That guy's going to do a corner. That guy's going to go here. And that guy's going to go here. Go stand in those spots. They went stand in those spots and they couldn't fucking throw it anywhere. It was great. So anyways, they still beat us. They had a play where our freaking team just could not pull a flag. Actually, one of my favorite parts of the game was one of my players. She's like the youngest sister. She's not typically like, she doesn't know what's going on a lot of times. I play all my players. Out of nowhere, this freaking our like youngest kid on the team, this girl she was all over the field pulling flags on one drive. Like she pulled like 6 straight flags, and I was just losing my mind about how freaking proud I was. So, ton of fun. We lost. That was lame. Parker had soccer. I don't remember if I mentioned the previous week, his first week at soccer, he somebody took the ball from him in the game because that's literally the sport of soccer.
Yes.
And he shut down for the whole game, walked everywhere with his head down, stomping his feet, pissed off.
I've seen that.
It was just like, what are you doing? So we had a long talk the previous week about that's literally soccer. You need to run the whole time. They're going to take the ball from you. Go take it back.
Exactly.
And this week it was opposite. He was all over. He never stopped. His motor was on from the start of the game to the end, ran everywhere, had a couple kicks at the goal that ended up getting blocked by the goalie, which was lame. But compared to last week, super proud, crushed it. So, and then it was my birthday on Saturday. So the big 2-8.
That's not true.
Yeah, it's not true. It was my birthday. And actually, I say that, but we didn't really do very much for my birthday. So kids went camping and we just kind of hung out, watched football, watched my team get destroyed, and broke my heart in every way. I'm still reeling from it. I canceled practice today because I refused to put a Jaguars hat on, and our flag team's the Jaguars. So anyways, let's get into something less depressing than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I got you a present for your birthday. I have to give it to you. I forgot to give it to you, just so you know.
Okay. Is it more memes making fun of me for being a Jags fan, or?
I don't think I sent any of those, so you can't even get mad. That was Ross.
I'm not
And
mad. It's fine.
and
It's
they
whatever.
lost. You lost to his team, so that's
I,
gonna happen.
I love how we call it his team when it's
Yes.
been his team for
Okay.
a year.
Like 2 years now.
That's what drives me crazy.
I
I'm
know.
like, bro. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into it. Let's get into my most excited segment of the pod, our 6 to midnight. This is the section of the show where we talk about the things that get us up in the morning, things that we're excited about, nerd news, video games, trailers, casting decisions, those types of things. So I know we've got a ton of stuff. Maybe we just kind of kick it back and forth just because we got so many things.
Sounds
I'm going
good
to
to me.
kick it off. The Penguin dropped on Max this past week, and I know you haven't seen it yet, so I won't give any spoilers, but oh my God, it's good. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Batman fan. I'm saying this because it's just good. It's so good. I was super nervous that they weren't going to be able to like get this. I always feel like when you're doing a spinoff of a really good movie,
Yep.
that you're not going to get the same like vibe or feel or look of like the same city or like it not feel like it's in that world because this is a show, not a movie. So like, is the production quality going to be there? Anyways, it picked right up where the Batman left off. It's so good. If you like The Sopranos, which we already kind of mentioned that's what we knew it was going for, but like just if you like any episodic HBO show that you're like, I can't wait for the next week's show, this is one of those. We're getting it. So go watch it, check it out. Colin Farrell as Oz Cobb, which I didn't realize they changed his name in it until this show.
It's not that big a deal.
It's not. It's fine. But anyways, go watch the show, please. It is worth your time. I've actually watched it like 3 times since it's dropped. So yeah, I can't wait for the next one. Let's jump over to you though. So
okay, so I was gonna say we got a trailer yesterday for the next MCU entry, which comes out in May. Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts. Yeah, nobody knows what that means yet. They said that there's a big meaning to it, and we'll find out when we see the movie. So I don't know. I'm interested, I guess. I don't know.
Thunderbolts are like the Suicide Squad in Marvel, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get. They're like Marvel's version of Suicide Squad. So you have like Yelena, who's Black Widow's sister from the Black Widow movie, Red Guardian, who's basically their dad, which is played by David Harbour, and then you have Winter Soldier, Bucky, who obviously was a bad guy in Winter Soldier and then kind of turned good guy in kind of the Avengers movies, and then you have John Walker, U.S. agent, who was the bad guy in Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. And then you have Taskmaster, who's obviously a villain. You have Ghost, who is a villain in Ant-Man and Wasp. And then you get your first look at the Sentry, which they don't come out and say. They just called him Bob in the trailer, but it's Sentry. If anybody knows anything about that character. Bob. Sentry he's kind of a Superman figure in Marvel. He has those kind of powers, but he also has a alter ego called the Void, which is like a dark version of Sentry. Like he literally turns into a shadow. Cool. So I'm thinking that's probably who the main villain's going to be, is the Void.
He's like Superman, but he's a bad guy in the comics.
Yeah, well, Sentry's a good guy, but he basically has like another personality that is not a good guy.
Good to know. Okay.
So obviously I want to see how they don't stick to the character formula 100%.
Yeah.
In the MCU, so I'm interested to see how they play out with that. And he's played by what's that dude's name? Pullman. He's Bill Pullman's son. He's in the new Salem's Lot that's coming out too. So he plays Sentry, so I'm interested in that. Yeah, no, the trailer looks good. It looks kind of, team building. You kind of get like, it kind of answers some questions and also brings up some more. I'm excited for it. I think it looks good, and it does look like it's going to be more of just a straight up action movie, because we're talking about soldiers, right? Like you have Bucky and you have US Agent, you have Red Guardian. They're basically just like, they're super soldiers. They're just strong, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Taskmaster, who is just like a Taskmaster character, can like learn everybody's moves and stuff. That's kind of what that. And Ghost is really the only one that has powers, so to speak. But I'm interested because I think they did a really good job. Marvel has with the like grounded, like Winter Soldier was a very grounded movie. Yes, there's helicarriers and things like that, but it was also very much like a espionage thriller kind of thing. And I feel like this kind of has that vibe too. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited. I think it was a good trailer. It was 3.5 minutes long, which is crazy for a trailer to be that long. But I'm interested to see. But that comes out in May. So, well,
Nice. I thought it looked good. I texted you immediately. Like, I think just David Harbour's character.
yeah.
It makes, I just picture in my head that this is, what the hell is he called? Hopper from Stranger Things, when he goes to Russia. He's Russian prison. So he's pictured like this is Hopper after he's been like lobotomized and hypnotized into being a Russian hero.
He's Red Guardian. We haven't seen that character since the Black Widow movie. And the Black Widow movie took place like before Infinity War, right? It was like a prequel kind of deal when it came out. So in that movie, he kind of looked like season 1 Hopper, where he's kind of a schlub.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, he looks more like season 4 Hopper, where he's
kind Daredevil.
He's kind of fit and stuff.
Not Daredevil. Hellboy.
I know. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what they do with that character too, because he was pretty entertaining. So, and I like David Harbour. So
yeah, I freaking love David Harbour. He's awesome. Love that. Okay, great. We did get some casting news, which is interesting timing because we had just been talking about this last week.
Right.
And Green Lantern has been cast. It is not any of the people. Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, has been cast. And we were talking about Josh Brolin. We were talking about Chris Pine and how we thought Chris Pine would be perfect.
They were looking at Matthew McConaughey. They talked about John Hamm. There was this list of like 50-year-old.
Yeah, all these old, like very well-known actors that were like, that's an interesting take. But clearly they're doing kind of old, grizzled, seasoned Hal Jordan within a young, brand new Jon Stewart.
Right.
So we've got Coach from Friday Night Lights. Oh, Kyle Chandler, which he's been in way more than just Friday Night Lights. He's been in a ton of more recent movies, which I should have looked up right before this. But anytime I see him in a movie, I'm immediately like, oh, there's Coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's Coach. So
100%.
He was so good as Coach. I have no issue with that casting. I think
I liked it. I was like came out of left field and I was like, yeah, okay. I like Kyle Chandler and I'm 100% on board for that.
Yeah. I mean, as Coach in Friday Night Lights, he's like the classic good, like good husband, good father, like good all about character. Yeah. Quippy and kind of funny. So I think that can be a good one.
Well, I thought it was interesting too that they were, because obviously this is going to be a series, right? This is going to be a show. It's not going to be a movie. Yeah. But I would assume it's going to tie together, but they really haven't said how the DC universe is going to work yet. Good Lord, whatever. But I thought it was interesting that they were talking about Josh Brolin, Matthew McConaughey, Chris Pine, John Hamm, and it's like those are all pretty much A-listers, and then Kyle Chandler's kind of a B+ lister. And,
I'm
totally okay with it, but he's one of those guys that like he's not as recognizable, but
it makes more sense. It makes more sense when you think of it as like, oh, this is a show, not a movie. Right. That's actually a good casting because he's more of a show guy. So, so we have our Hal Jordan for Green Lanterns. What else you got?
So the new. I know I'm talking about Marvel again, but this was kind of a big week for Marvel. So the new MCU TV show came out on Disney Plus, Agatha All Along, which is like a sequel series to WandaVision. It starts off kind of tying right into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness with with Scarlet Witch. You kind of get some answers to some questions you had at the end of that movie. But then there's a lot more questions that pop up. But it's Catherine Hahn, Aubrey Plaza is in it. It's interesting. It's definitely its own thing. You can tell it's its own little side deal. It's not going to tie in, I don't think, to the whole MCU. I mean, obviously something could happen, but they've kind of said they're going to kind of go to more of these standalone shows like they did with Echo, which had come out. And I think it's going to be more of that, but it's really timely. It's all about Coven of Witches. It's more horror stuff. So kind of ties in with spooky season.
Spooky. Kyle Chandler's been in the more recent Godzilla movies, by the way. That's where I was like, what was he just in?
Wasn't he like Millie Bobby Brown's dad in those movies?
Yep. So, love that. I, as you know, and we've talked about, I have not kept up. I didn't watch WandaVision. I haven't kept up with a lot of those, but like I saw this obviously on the Disney Plus panel, watched the trailer, thought it looked good. Did not know that that's what it was connected with, but I saw it and like was next to my wife, and she was like, I've almost started that like 3 times because it looks very much in her like book talk.
It does. It's kind of what it looks like.
So. Yeah. Nice. Wait, so you watched that? Is it one episode or
first 2 episodes came out last week? I think it might have come out the same day as The Penguin, and it was something that obviously the kids and I watched together. Yeah. And so we watched it, and yeah, it was good. I mean, it's going to be great for. I think it ends right before Halloween. This, so it'll be nice. Kind of its own little MCU.
Spooky thing. A little Halloween thing, which we didn't really talking about this at all. But speaking of a Halloween like month of October thing, American Horror Story has. Which I think Kyle Chandler was actually in that as well. I think he was in a season of that as well.
I've never watched it. I have no idea.
American Horror Story has had some really good seasons. It is interesting how the show operates in that it's not like a continuous, like every season is the same actors will play different characters, different story, different time period. And some of them have been really good. Like I liked the hotel one. There's a Coven one. But they announced that I think there's 4 or maybe 5 episodes, like a mini series that they're talking about that drops this week. So, also in the news, not to double up there, but I did not have what I just talked about on the list, but the new, the sequel, which we knew was coming out in video game world. One of my favorite games of all time is Ghosts of Tsushima. It's a samurai game. It's set in feudal Japan. It is an open world. It's like the ultimate samurai experience, and it's one of like the most beautiful games ever. Just the graphics are insane. Cinematography, the entire thing. They took a lot of influence from old like famous Japanese samurai movies and like spaghetti westerns and stuff. It's just such a good game. It's so good. They announced that there's the sequel is coming out today. Trailer dropped for Ghost of Yote. But it's set 300 years in the future, which is interesting. I saw she had a rifle at one point, like a
300 years after
musket.
The last one, not
after. Did I say before?
No, you said in the future. So I think it's
sorry, 300 years,
right? Yeah.
Yes, 300 years in the future from the previous game. Sorry,
in the year 2300.
Yeah, not
samurais
it
rule
is
the
not
world.
Cyberpunk samurai. Oh, I meant 300 years in the future from Ghost of Tsushima. So, dude, I would.
You'd play the shit out of that game.
Yeah, I'd play that. So, trailer drop looks cool. The graphics again look insane. It's a PlayStation exclusive, so you can't play it unless you have a PS5. It's this new one that's coming out. Looks awesome. Obviously, I'm going to play it. I was complaining to you. I'm just sound like such a chauvinist, and our number one fan who watches this is going to kill me. But I'm like the main character is a female samurai, which I think obviously we've talked about the Blue-Eyed Samurai that came out on
such a good
Netflix,
show.
which is so good. It's so good. And it feels like that show came out and they're like, all right, let's do that. But just in my head, I'm like, I have just played like 5 straight games where the main antagonist is like a female, like Star Wars is like that. We've got Tomb Raider. All of the movies that are coming out of these I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, female led, which are great. I love all of them. But that came out of left field. I wasn't expecting that. So I'm interested to see where it goes. Trailer does make it look freaking badass. At one point, I think she's double blading it. So I'm always a fan of a double blade. But yeah, I did not see, I think 2025. That can't be right.
Yeah, it's next year. That's right.
Yes, which it's great. They didn't have an exact date, but they do have just say next year. You're right. So looks awesome. I'm excited. New video games. I guess I'm gonna have to get a PS5.
I guess get a PS5 Pro for $700. Ridiculous.
My wife and I were talking like there was a video game that Grayson really wants to play, and it's a PlayStation exclusive. So she asked me like yesterday. It was like, so this game's only on the PlayStation. Like, is that something that we would? I'm like, yep. We would need totally it for the family.
For the family.
We all need
the children. That. For the children.
Then I can finally play Spider-Man 2, or you get to play as like symbiote Spider-Man.
I've been sitting here waiting for that thing to price drop, and then they announced that they were coming out with the new Slim version, and I was like, oh, perfect, good, $500 still. I mean, they didn't change the price.
It's crazy.
It's been out for 2 years. I mean, come on, let's
it's
take a little bit off. Anyway, next thing I want to talk about, and it's just something that I'm interested in, but there's a show. It's on MGM Plus. It's kind of unknown, but the 3rd season just dropped. The first episode. It's a show called From. Have you heard of this show? It's just called From. FROM. It's from some of the creators of Lost, which you get that vibe right away. But basically, what it is the first season was on Prime. The second season went to MGM Plus, and that's what the 3rd season is. It's a town that people just end up driving to. Okay, like they see a tree down in the woods, they see a flock of crows, and then the next thing they know, they drive into this town, and they can't leave the town. Like if you try to drive away, you end up back in the town. It's kind of like this other dimension kind of deal. And the thing is you have to you have to be inside at night, protected, because there are creatures in the woods that will rip you apart and eat you.
Oh my God.
It's
outstanding.
It's wild. It's very Lost. Like there's a lighthouse somewhere in the woods that they found, and it has like people chained up like in a dungeon, and there's a whole, it keeps adding too many questions, but season 3 just dropped. I'm excited for that. It's a really good show. It's on MGM Plus. If you've never seen, not any real big name actors in it. But it's really good. I like binge watched the first 2 seasons like super quick.
I'm interested.
I was pretty excited for the 3rd one to come out. Just watch the trailer.
It's made me think of like the original Silent Hill. Like
you kind of get that. You kind of get that vibe too, and it's cool because there's this weird town dynamic. Like Harold Perrineau, he's an actor. He was in like Oz, and then he's been in a couple other shows. But he's like the main character. He's like the sheriff. And the reason he's the sheriff of this town is because he was like military. He had weapons. He's trained. And so he kind of gets anointed the sheriff of the town. But it's interesting because there's this town dynamic, and then there's this like big house up on the hill that's almost kind of like this free spirit group of people that live up there. So it's a little different, but there's a lot of backstory to each character. You find out more about them, and it's kind of like Lost, but more horror.
Sounds
interesting.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm interested. Love that. Okay, sweet. I'd never even heard of MGM Plus, so
I hadn't either until I saw it.
That's awesome. Interested. I've got it written down as a note. Trailers. 2 trailers dropped today. I'll actually I won't let you talk about the first one. And then I'll talk about the second one because obviously, I'm a nerd about the franchise that the second one is.
Yeah, so a trailer dropped today for a new movie that we knew was coming out. It's a Ryan Coogler film. So Ryan Coogler did Fruitvale Station. He did Black Panther. He did Creed. But it's starring Michael B. Jordan, who plays dual roles. He kind of plays brothers, twin brothers. There's not a lot known about the movie. It's it looks like it's an action horror film, and it looks like it takes place in like the 20s or 30s. You kind of get that vibe, right?
Gave me the vibe of like Lawless with Shia LaBeouf and Tom Hardy and like Peaky Blinders kind of vibes.
Yeah, but what I could gather from it is I think it's a vampire movie.
It is a vampire movie.
So it's a vampire. So Ryan Coogler, who did like these amazing films, is like, I'm gonna do a vampire movie with Michael B. Jordan and Tom, and he's shooting Tommy guns and shit. And like,
dude,
okay,
it looks so
sign
cool.
me up.
Yeah,
I'm in.
There's a clip of Michael B. Jordan just like slowly walking and ripping this Tommy gun.
Yeah, like right at the camera. It's wild.
What a badass shot that is. Yeah. It looks really cool.
Michael B. Jordan's a badass too. Like,
dude,
I love him.
He's Bay #1 for a lot of people in the world.
It's true.
Looks jacked as ever. He's dappered up, dressed all in like suits and boots from, like you said, kind of like the 20s. Look, give you like kind of speakeasy era. That's why when I said Peaky Blinders, is strictly kind of thinking of like the dress, the outfit and clothes that he was wearing. I think it looks cool. I think Ryan Coogler does just the culture that he puts in his movies are just fucking incredible. So
I don't know. Did we say it's called Sinners, by the way? If we didn't,
I don't think we said the name.
Yeah,
it is called Sinners. When I think we may have just briefly kind of mentioned it on a past episode. I think we were talking about Blade, and it was like people were taught, like the industry was kind of saying, like, it felt like Ryan Coogler was like, I want to do like a Blade type movie, but like, I'm not going to do Blade because I'm not going to go through that route. But
right. So here's what it's set in 1930s Louisiana. Smoke and his twin brother find themselves caught in the middle of a horrifying event when they return to their hometown to start over. And it's listed as a gothic supernatural horror action film.
Sign me up. What's the release date?
March 7th of next year.
Nice. Sweet.
Take my money. I'm in.
Yeah. All in.
Pencil that episode in, episode 83. I don't know. I'm guessing. Watch it be right.
Oh, that's true. That's actually a good point. Yeah, we will for sure do an episode on that. That's one of those movies that we have to. And then we got which I didn't think we were going to get another trailer. I feel like we've got enough trailers. I'm a big fan of give me a good trailer, but don't give me too many so I see or feel like I know the whole movie. But a new trailer dropped, and again, I am just as excited for this movie, Gladiator 2. I think it's the final trailer that they just dropped.
Probably pretty close. They might show one more right at the end, but
it gives you a little bit more kind of insight on who is who. We pretty much find out that it is Maximus' son as the main character, which I think they kind of I don't feel like they like alluded to it in the first one, but obviously they've been alluding to it in the trailers here. But like, that's cool. I mentioned to you of like, oh, I guess that means Maximus like cheated on his wife and had a kid out of wedlock with someone in the first movie, which was a bummer because he was such a cool dad and husband in that. So, but the trailer looks great.
The legacy.
The trailer looks great. I am so excited to see Denzel Washington play like the spider from Game of Thrones kind of vibe is what I get. He just like the costumes he's in looks cool.
Yep.
New main actor that's playing like the main gladiator character looks super cool. Paul Mescal, but Pedro Pascal is who I feel like is the sleeper of who is going to be like the best part of the movie.
Right.
Call me crazy, but his character in the trailers, like you very much get a vibe that he is a Roman general, kind of like Maximus was, but that he is like Roman through and through, and feels like the leadership of where Rome is going is not what he signed up for.
Yeah, you get this vibe in the trailer that like Paul Mescal's character Lucius, like his main goal is to kill Marcus, like that General Marcus, like that's his goal. But you get this vibe, and again, this is from trailers, but you get the vibe like maybe Marcus isn't the bad guy we think he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. There's been a lot of kind of info that's come out at the same time of this trailer. Like Ridley Scott essentially has already said that he's thinking, or he has plans for a number 3.
I did see that.
Based on how this movie, one, he seems very excited about it. Like he is all in on like, all right, this franchise is actually awesome. And then kind of mentioned how it ends will set up a character in a position that he doesn't want to be in, but would be good for a number 3, was kind of what I had saw.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that works out. 2 things. Obviously, Ridley Scott's like 80 at this point.
Yeah.
So we'd have to make it soon. And then this movie has a reported budget of like $300 million. I mean,
and 250 are probably for Denzel.
I'm just saying, like it's got to make a lot of money for them to make another one.
That's a good point. And is it a franchise that has enough like steam behind it, like a Beetlejuice, that no matter what, everyone's going to go see?
This has to be one of those movies that like the dudes are going to see it for sure, but you've got to people are going to have to repeat view it, which means it's got to be fantastic. I mean, it has to be if you're going to make another one.
Yeah, you can't just have the movie kind of rest on the name itself. People, when it comes out, it's got to be talked about. There's got to be a buzz. People are going to go see it. So I think it looks good. I'm excited for it. Last kind of thing for me, comic that comes out. We get basically the first issue comes out this week, tomorrow, for I think you and I both, it's probably in our top 5, if not top 2 or 3. The Long Halloween is one of the most popular Batman stories ever. It is essentially
my favorite.
It is so good. It is what almost every cool like live action movie story that's happened has been like ripped from this comic. Like
taking a lot
the
from
dynamic between Harvey Dent and him becoming Two-Face, and like it's such a good story that like the original book is, I'm not going to go over the full thing, but essentially it's a mystery where Batman's trying to hunt down or find out who this holiday killer is, who kills on holidays and starts on Halloween. It's very The Godfather meets Batman. It's part of the Batman world where it's not necessarily all about his rogues gallery. It's got a lot of that kind of like the Penguin show, which is a lot of stuff from Halloween and Penguin. It very like mobsters, mob boss type stuff. But anyways, the original was done. There's The Long Halloween, and there's a sequel that came out called Dark Victory, which is where they introduce Robin. It's written by Jeff Loeb, who is one of the best comic writers ever. And then Tim Sale is the artist, who they are like synonymous together on stories. Like when Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale do a story, it's like extremely well remembered. They've got a Superman for All Seasons. It's basically a one-shot story. It's one of the best Superman stories ever. There's a Spider-Man Blue, which is one of the best Spider-Man stories ever. I think there's a Daredevil Yellow, which is also really, really good. There's a couple others out there. But anyways, Tim Sale passed away, which is obviously super sad. But they had talked about plans for to finish this series with another run. And the original series was 12 months. One came out every month for for a whole year. Dark Victory, I can't remember like the time frame of how that was released, but so they are. It's called The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, which some people were kind of like, "What's up with that title?" But
We'll find out.
Yeah, I think you got to call it The Long Halloween because that so we know it's with that story. But issue number 1 comes out tomorrow. It's written by Jeff Loeb. They basically are bringing in like the Avengers of comic book artists to do it.
Eduardo Risso, who did like the Batman Who Laughs and did some Detective Comics. Dave Stewart and Richard Starkings. Klaus Janson, who did Dark Knight Returns. Mark Chiarello, who did Batman Black and White and Devil's Workshop, Batman Houdini, and more artists to be named later. So yeah, it's a who's who of artists.
From what I saw, they're supposed, I think they're doing art in the style of Tim Sale. Yeah. So I hope that's the case, though all of those artists are awesome in their own right. The Long Halloween story and comics have a very specific like feel and art style and look. And so
it's amazing.
I hope they stick with that. I think that's the one thing about the part 1 and part 2 movies that came out that are both awesome on Max. The only like gripe I think people had with it is that they didn't directly do the art style from the comic, which I think is hard to do as a
it's hard cartoon. To do in animation, yeah.
But like that is a part of that original story that makes it so good. So anyways, that drops tomorrow. That is the last thing I've got 40 minutes in.
The longest 6 to midnight ever. So we'll get through the movie portion pretty quick. But so that takes us into our I can't believe you haven't seen it, Kyle, the 2007 science fiction horror film, The Mist. So The Mist was directed by Frank Darabont, screened by Frank Darabont, obviously based on the novella by Stephen King. Cast includes Thomas Jane as David Drayton, Marcia Gay Harden as Mrs. Carmody, Laurie Holden as Amanda Dunphy, Andre Brower as Brent Norton, Toby Jones as Ollie Weeks, William Sadler as Jim Grondin, Jeffrey DeMunn as Dan Miller, and Sam Witwer as Private Jessup. Had to mention Sam.
That was a total shocker to see him in that movie. He's super uber famous for like Star Wars stuff, and he's the main basically actor model for the Star Wars Unleashed video games. I don't think I've actually seen him in a movie or show. So he is extremely recognizable. So the second he was on the screen, I'm like, up. Sam, what's he doing here? Anyways.
So Kyle had never seen The Mist. A little backstory about the movie. It was obviously based on a novella by Stephen King that was included in several different collections, including the one I read it in, which was Skeleton Crew. I read this story when I was like 12, I don't know, 13. And
we were talking about that during the movie. I don't know why I asked that question, but you had said like, oh, I read this book when I was a kid, and I stopped and was like, wait, how old were you when you were reading all these Stephen King books? And you were like 13, 14?
Yeah. Like, junior high, man. As soon as I hit junior high, I started reading Stephen King books. I went from Goosebumps to Stephen King, like that.
What's the book that has, it's like black and white and a little bit of red that's they made a movie, it's not Horror Stories, or just has like the total creepy art in every single story. They're little short stories. Fuck, I'll remember it while we're going. But anyways, when I was a kid, that book literally terrified me. Anyways, continue with the movie. Apologies.
So we'll be able to get through The Mist pretty quick because it's a pretty simple story. Basically, it starts off with David Drayton, who lives on a lake with his family, his wife and his son, young son, who is probably 6 or 7 years old. And a big storm blows in right at the beginning, and a tree comes through their window. Another tree falls on their like boathouse. And anyway, they have to go into town to get supplies, and he's got to fix stuff up. Meanwhile, he goes over to his neighbor, who they don't get along. Apparently, they'd had a lawsuit or something or some complaints about the property previously, but the neighbor's car has had a tree fall on it as well. So he offers to take the neighbor into town, who the neighbor is Brent Norton, played by Andre Brower, and they go into town to get some supplies. Meanwhile, right before they leave, they notice that there's a mist rolling across the lake, very heavy, thick mist. Interesting. They make a point to say that's interesting how it's rolling across the water like that. So by the time they get to the grocery store's packed. Nobody's got power because of the storm. There's tons of people there. They're trying to, it's kind of chaotic. They're getting their supplies. And Jeffrey DeMunn's character, Dan Miller, runs in, blood coming down his nose, saying there's something in the mist. So he warns people not to go out there. The mist rolls in, super thick mist. It kind of comes over everything. And he says, nobody go out there. It's not safe. So this is very much a apocalyptic type movie. It's about, as much as it's about what's in the mist, it's also about what happens to humans when placed in this kind of situation, right?
Yep.
So we're introduced to a couple characters. We've got William Sadler's Jim Grondin. Basically what happens is the generator to the store is clogged up somehow on the outside. And one of the stalker boys says, oh, I'll go out and I'll unclog it. And, Thomas Jane's character is like, maybe not. Maybe we don't know what's out there yet. We know something's out there because obviously it caused the problem, but we might not be the safest thing. And then you got William Sadler's character, Jim, and his buddy, or, I don't care what you have to say, dude. You're some big fancy city person. And, you kind of get that small town, worried about people thinking they're better than each other. And needless to say, they get the garage door open to the loading dock, and tentacles come in from the mist. Tentacles come in. Not only are they just tentacles, but they have very long needle-like claws on the tentacles. And we're not just talking like one or two, like rows. And they literally rip the flesh off the stock boy, grab him. Just blood everywhere. It's disgusting.
Brutal. Anyway, I will say that is the trailer for this movie way back when this came out. I thought this looks like a cool, scary, creepy story. What could it be? And then I can't remember if I saw it at some point or if I had seen a story that had said there's tentacles that come out of the mist.
Yeah.
That was where I was like, I'm out. That doesn't sound cool and interesting. But little did I know. Well,
don't get confused with the John Carpenter classic, The Fog. These are two totally different movies. Similar premise, sort of, but not.
Didn't they come out very close to each other?
Well, so The Fog came out in the early 80s, which was about when this story was already out when The Fog came out, the movie.
Okay.
Then they did a remake of The Fog in the 2000s that probably did come out around the same time as The Mist did. And the remake of the Mist, or The Fog, sorry, the remake of The Fog is terrible.
Oh no.
This is a god awful movie. Here, I'm going to look it up. The remake of The Fog is an awful 2018. So it was actually it wasn't 2018. No way. 2004. 2005. So they were within a couple of years of each other. Yeah.
Okay.
They have nothing to do with anything except it's misty or foggy, whatever you call it. So anyway, the poor stock boy gets pulled out by these tentacles. They cut off a part of the tentacle, and then of course there's a little fight between Thomas Jane's character and William Sadler's because you let that kid, you let that kid die. And he's like, I didn't know. And there's a little blame to be had, but so they go in and they tell everybody there's tentacles out there. And of course, the natural reaction would be, y'all are nuts. There's no way. Quit making shit up. What are you trying to do? So they take back the manager of the grocery store and he sees this piece on the ground, twitching. And he's like, yeah, they're not lying. But you're still a group. So now you've now got groups in the grocery store. Grocery store is packed. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 60, 70 people. Right?
Yeah.
There's groups. There's a group that doesn't believe any of this crap. Right? They're going to leave. There's a group that believes it and thinks they need to stay safe and like board everything up. And then you got Mrs. Carmody, who's kind of a religious nut, little very end of days. Like, this is God doing this. Like, we've all been judged and we have to do things to make sure God doesn't punish us any further, right? So Andre Brower's character, Gray, gathers some people up. They're like, we're going to leave. We're going to get out of here. We're going to go home. And one of the guys that's kind of in the group that's like, this isn't safe, is like, I'm going to go out to your car. I'm going to get your, was it a knife? I'm going to get your knife or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, or I don't know, or gun or something, or a rifle. I think he was going to go get a rifle. I'll go out to your car, go get the rifle. And they're like, we'll tie a rope around your waist. That way we, see how far you go, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, he goes out. Obviously, it gets sucked out, pulled up. Boom. They start pulling him back. The rope's covered in blood. They keep pulling, and it's just half of him tied to the rope. Like, the other half is gone.
It's his lower legs. It's
right.
Torso and butt down.
So now, of course, now that the religious group is now, it's kind of turned into a group, religious fanatics. It's not just Carmody anymore. Now she's starting to preach to people, and she's getting people to believe her.
Yeah, she's saying things of like, this is what's going to happen at night. Someone's going to die at this point, and then someone does, and slowly starts to it. I will say, like, when she first starts talking at the point where like there are no groups, it's just people were shopping in the grocery store, and now they're all kind of boxed in for a little bit while something's going on outside. She seems crazy, like such a nut job.
He is. Why would anybody believe her?
Yeah, that I can't imagine anyone listening to this woman talk and thinking like she is sane, or like I would listen to what she's saying.
Right.
So I think that is a kind of important part of how the story continues from where you're going to take it.
It's interesting because this movie to me is much more about what's going on with the people in the grocery store than what's happening outside, right?
Which is hard to that. It's hard to that. If I were to go back and watch it again now, that would be my main focus. But it's so hard to not spend the whole movie going like, what the fuck is in the mist? Like, what is going on there? So it's like two stories going on at one time. So sorry.
And you're good. And we talked a little bit, like when we watched this together, we talked a little bit about like, they're not in that grocery store for very long and people start losing their shit. And I think that's the main point of this, is like, something's happening outside that's so batshit crazy that it's literally breaking people's psyches. Like they're losing. Like, the kid is a wreck from the get-go, and there's some so we a couple things to just like get to. Night comes, they've put up dog food bags, they have lights on in the store. Well, they don't know what's going on in the mist, but all of a sudden you got bugs on the window, giant bugs in the window, because they're attracted to the lights. So they had filled up buckets with like kerosene or something so that they could create torches. And so some of these bugs start breaking the glass and they get in. And one of the girls, like a checker, she gets like stung in the neck. And it's awful. Like, swells up. She's choking. And she's kind of, you can tell she's got something going on with Sam Witwer's character. And he's basically holding on to her, and she dies. And then another guy who's trying to like fight off one of the things ends up spilling the bucket of kerosene or whatever it is, lighting himself on fire. They get him put out, but he's like burned to a crisp. He's not dead. But they're fighting all these bugs. They end up, if you find out that Toby Jones's character Ollie is like a pistol sharpshooter, like it was like his thing in school. So he's like freaking sniping these bugs. But they end up getting everything. They get him killed. They board it back up. And of course, Mrs. Carmody's like, we knew this was happening. We told you somebody would die. This is, and now people are really starting to buy into what she's selling, even though
she says
nuts.
something about like the locusts at the end of
Yeah.
days or something, and all these
And all these
freaking
freaking
bugs
bugs
just
show
came
up.
in. And
Right.
the
These
body
alien bugs.
horror, there's not a ton of it. I mean, there's some.
It's very effective.
very effective. The bag girl, when she got stung by the bug in the neck, which, like, when the bugs first enter and they're flying around, you're just kind of like, oh, giant creepy bugs, gross. But then
Yeah.
when it stings her and she immediately starts turning into like a body horror character from the movie
Yeah.
The Thing,
Return to
like she
Violet.
immediately looks disgusting. And like then that heightens the like, oh shit, because there's like 40 of them flying around
Yeah.
in the grocery store. So you're like, oh my god, don't touch anybody. So
Yeah. Gross.
and one of them landed on her, landed on the crazy,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
the Bible thumping
Mrs. Carmody.
nut job. It one of them lands on her, and you think like that she's gonna
Well,
freaking,
you're
oh,
kind of like,
she's
yeah, get her.
yeah, and she just kind of sits and like and lets it take her, and she says some type of Bible line,
She prays.
and it flies
Flies
away.
away.
So I think that also was like a sign for people of like, wait a minute,
She's onto something here.
she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was really interesting, and I found this out. So Frank Darabont wanted this to feel like a documentary. So he had done some work on the FX TV show The Shield. Remember that show, that police drama? He actually hired the crew from that because it's very street level documentary style filming to film this movie, because that's the way he wanted it filmed in the store. He also chose, even though this was made in 2006 and 7, he chose to do this on Fujifilm as opposed to digital, so that it looked a lot more grainy and rough. And so I thought that was interesting choices. And obviously we're going to talk more about some of his other work here in a second, but he's made some really good movies. And so those are some really cool choices to make when it comes to the filming of a movie like this. And I think it works really well. Some of the dialogue's a little hokey. I've read most of Stephen King's books. Stephen King can tell a great story. His dialogue's always been a little iffy. And so a lot of times if you think about it, like with movie adaptations based on Stephen King works, things that are made very carbon copy from what he's written in the books don't really work, because he writes weird. And you kind of get a little bit of this, and you get a little bit of that in this, but Frank does a pretty good job of telling a good story. Especially based on a novella like this. But
and I love the Punisher movie. So Thomas Jane is, I like him as a main character, and I think he's great in this movie.
Had a weird career, but I like him too. Anyway, so we get to the next day, and Thomas Jane and a small group of people decide they're going to go to the pharmacy next door because the guy that got burned needs some medicine. And
Harry's going to die.
Yeah, Harry's going to die, and he's in tons of pain. They need to get something for him. So they decide they're going to...
And one of the other grocery members is his brother.
Yes.
So
him and
push.
Yeah, and William Sadler's character, and they're kind of buddies now because, he feels bad for what happened at the beginning. Jeffrey DeMunn's character, they're all going to go. The old lady teacher is going to go over. They're going to get as much medicine as they can. They're going to get painkillers. They're going to get Silverdine. They're going to get everything they can. Anyway, they go over. They get to the pharmacy. But before they leave, Mrs. Carmody and her crew are like, you can't go. You're going to bring wrath upon us if you do, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they go anyway. Basically, you're crazy, lady. We're going to go anyway. So they go. Ollie goes too. They get into the pharmacy, and it's very dark, and the mist has kind of moved into the pharmacy because the door was wide open. So you can't see really well, but they start finding what they're looking for. And you start to realize when you're watching the movie, there's something all over everything, right? And then you slowly realize it kind of looks like spider webs. Then you realize that there are people wrapped in cocoons, like hanging from the ceiling and stuff. And I don't think it comes right out and says it, but it looks like it's the group that left with Andre Braugher's character. Mm-hmm. You don't see him directly, but you see one of the military policemen that was outside the store when the mist rolled in. So you don't really know, but there's something wrapping these people up in cocoons. So they find the MP, and he's like kind of seasoned, and he's got these bumps all over him, and he falls. They cut him loose, and he falls out, and he literally explodes into like a million baby spiders.
Oh,
And then
it's
you
so
start
gross.
seeing these giant spiders, these nasty looking things,
God.
and they start shooting webs at people from their abdomens, and they hit the one guy's the burned guy's brother, and it hits him in the leg, and you realize that the web is like acid, and it like cuts through the guy's leg, and he freaking dies.
Yeah.
And they're dragging him out, and so now they got to get out of there because they're and like William Sadler's character freaks out and has like a mental breakdown in the store.
Yeah.
And they get back to the grocery store, and they say what happened. So obviously somebody else died again. Find out the burned guy died while they were gone, right?
Yeah. So it was for nothing.
It was for nothing anyway. Well, we'll get more to that, but Mrs. Carmody's now William Sadler's on her side because he's lost it. Half the store is now on her side, thinking that this is what's going to happen. One of the old ladies takes a bunch of the painkillers and kills herself, right?
Yeah.
Very tragically, but understandably, I think, at that point. Yeah. And this is when they realize that the three military guys might know something about this because they're talking about the mist. And so the religious zealots grab Sam Witwer, and basically he's like, they were working on a project. We I had nothing to do with it, but they were like opening portals to different dimensions. It must have something to do with that. But I just worked on base. I had nothing to do with it. And they murder him.
Yeah.
Like they stab him a bunch of times in the stomach, and then they throw him outside. And that's when you realize the people that they have to leave. It's time to go. So
the people who are like not into the religious thing are like, it feels very Lord of the Flies. If you ever read the story,
Frank Darabont said that was his intention when he wrote the screenplay, is he wanted it to feel very Lord of the Flies.
It's exactly what it felt like, which that book just gave me such the heebie-jeebies back when I was a kid reading it. Mm-hmm. But that is the exact feeling that you have as you're watching this kind of slowly unravel.
Yeah.
One thing I don't think we mentioned, but at the beginning of the movie, at some point, they kind of sneak in a little bit of a line about mentioning that there's a military base in town.
Yes.
Or at some, like up in the mountains from the town. And that they jokingly talk about how like nobody knows what goes on up there, and people say there's these big like Bigfoot type of tales, like these like something, there's a bunch of legends about the military base is what they kind of say.
And in the story, in the actual novella, that's all you get is just that. Like you get like they don't know what happens up there. Maybe this is where the mist came from. In the novella, you never find out if that's true or not.
Oh, even at the end.
No, because even in the movie, it's obviously directly implied that that is what happened. You know, that like they opened one of these dimensional portals and the door got left open, and now all these things came through. But that's something that Frank added on his own as part of the story. It was implied, but it wasn't directly said.
And you said you like the movie better than the book, right?
I do actually like the movie better. It's very similar. They do a very good job. You get the same sense of dread reading the novella. And when we talk about the ending, I'll talk about why I like the movie better. A couple fun facts that I just thought I would throw in there. William Sadler, who I talked about, played Jim Grondin, and he's actually in a lot of Frank Darabont's movies. He was in Shawshank and in The Green Mile.
Oh, yeah.
He actually voiced David Drayton's character, which is who Thomas Jane plays, in the original audiobook for The Mist.
Oh.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting little tidbit. So
nice.
So the group decides they need to leave. So we're down pretty much now to David, Amanda, Toby Jones, Ollie Weeks, and Jeffrey DeMunn, and then the one old guy, I can't remember what his name was, and then the old teacher lady. So Ollie's going to get a bunch of groceries. He's going to hide them up at the front, and they're going to sneak out while everybody's sleeping. So he hides the groceries. They make their plan. They make their move to leave. They're going to leave in Thomas Jane, David Drayton's car. They get to the front. The groceries are gone. And here's Mrs. Carmody and her clan.
I hate her.
Her cult, right? Yeah, I know. So they start fighting back. Like they're kind of like, oh, you can't leave. You're going to bring more on us and stuff. And Carmody starts talking about a sacrifice. We need another sacrifice. Give us the boy. Like they're going to kill David's son.
Yeah,
right?
That.
And so they're trying to take him. And they're obviously, everybody's trying to fight them all off. And Ollie just smokes her.
Dude.
Shoots her in the chest.
I
in front of everybody.
I almost let out a fuck yeah.
Like
the second
she needed to.
happened.
Yeah, he shoots her in the chest. She's looking down at the bullet, and then he blasts her right square between the eyes and kills her. And then they get there. They run. They get out.
Yeah. But it's at that point, it's too late for that. Like taking her out is not going to keep. It's not going to dissipate.
No.
What's going on.
They gotta go.
Yeah.
So they run out. The old guy with the mustache, he doesn't make it. Ollie doesn't make it. Ollie gets picked up by a freaking pterodactyl.
God,
or whatever the hell it is.
He was the hero, in this whole story, nerdy kind of dork. But
and he drops the pistol, and it lands on the hood of the car. So as they're leaving, David's reaching out while one of the spiders shows up, and he ends up grabbing it and getting out of there. So it's David, his son, Amanda, the school teacher lady, and Jeffrey DeMunn's characters, 5 of them, right?
Yeah.
And so they're driving, and they're trying to get out of the mist. So they're just driving. They can't go fast because you can't see anything, right? There's cars all over the road. They got to make sure that they don't wreck. So they're going. Now, we both said, you're like, they didn't even try to stop at a gas station.
Yeah, like what? God.
So they run out of gas. They're broke down on the side of the road. They got no food. They got no supplies. Their all hope is gone. They don't know. There's things that they see so many different things. Giant dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Cthulhu freaking looking things. There's all sorts of crazy shit in the mist, right?
Yeah.
Like that they see. And this is where in the novella it ends. David Drayton's keeping a journal, and he says, we've stopped. They're like in a hotel. Like we stopped. We found an abandoned hotel. I'm writing this entry. We're continuing south. Hopefully hopefully we'll find the end of the mist someday. That's how the story ends, which is cool. I like that ending. I don't have a problem with it. But this is where Frank Darabont made a very bold decision.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you right now, Stephen King praised his ending for its boldness. He said the ending is such a jolt. It's frightening. And he can't believe the studio let Frank make the ending of this movie.
Dude, agreed.
So there's 4 bullets and 5 people. Thomas Jane, they all agree they're gonna kill themselves. So Thomas Jane agrees that he'll kill them 4, including his young 6-7-year-old son, and then he'll go outside and let the creatures eat him. He kills everybody.
It's so,
and he's got the gun in his hand, there's blood splattering on his face, and he screamed like this guttural scream, and it's so perfect for what he just did. Like he just killed his kid, you know. And he gets out of the car and he hears something coming, and he's just waiting for it to take him, and he's like sobbing, and it's a military vehicle, and he's saved. It's God. One of the most gut-wrenching endings to a movie ever. Like 5 more minutes and they're all saved.
Yes, military shows up, the mist is clearing, they're flamethrower
and everything.
Trucks full of people and that were saved start driving by. Thomas Jane, in this scene, like you said, it shows basically him holding the gun up, and his son wakes up from a nap, and you could tell it's just showing the son. It's not showing the gun, but you could tell the son's like, what the hell? And then it pans out of the car, and you just 4 gunshots and flashes, and you're like, oh my God, no, he did not And the way Thomas Jane like lets out this like guttural scream cry in the car and then gets out and he's still doing the same thing and nothing eats him right away. So he starts like screaming at just everything, like, come take me, like, kill me, take me. And then kind of falls to his knees and is waiting for it to happen. And this freaking tank shows up and they could have been saved.
Yeah.
This ending, the movie overall, I guess, primarily because of the ending, it like had a profound impact on me for like 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We are both fathers.
Even talking about it is hard.
Dude, like my oldest son was very similar to the age of the kid in this movie.
Same.
And like, and as movie dads, as dads, like now when we see movies that have like where a kid gets offed or that's, you don't notice it before you have kids, but once you do, you realize a lot of people, there's a lot more movies that have that in it than you'd think. And it's hard to watch. Like it is really hard to watch. And this particular, like it crushed me. And I think I said to you, like, I can't imagine, like, if I was Thomas Jane, I wouldn't have been able to say yes to doing this movie. If I knew even that my character, who's not real in a movie, had to do that, I wouldn't be able to do it. It fucked me up so much inside watching the end of this.
Terrible. And as tragic as that ending is, it's masterful because it is such a bold damn choice. And it's insane. And I mean, listen, if I could give a score to just the ending, I would give the ending like a 9.9 because it's not, and I hate it. I hate the ending. I hate the ending of this movie. But it's so well done and it's so like, kills you. It's tremendous. And
it's so powerful.
Yes.
And I think without that ending, this movie and story is not that memorable. But because of that, it makes it, I think, makes the movie way better. Even though I hate the ending, it makes the whole story 100 times more interesting. If that makes sense. It's kind of like one of those things where like stories of tragedies are more remembered. No one would remember Romeo and Juliet, the story, if they both lived happily ever after. So
you're right.
All right, what do you got for it?
Listen, like this is, I think, one of the 21st century's greatest horror movies, like past 2000. It's extremely well done. I have problems with some of the dialogue. I said that some of the acting's not the best. I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I think it's a really good movie.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. It was a great movie. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad that you made me watch it because I wouldn't.
Even though you hated, you were so mad at me at the end.
I like try to go out of my way to not watch movies if I know or find out anything that has something to do with like a kid dying, like the son of someone, or it is so hurtful. I think I texted you. It was like 1 a.m. when the movie ended. I walked upstairs, both of my sons, who sometimes will sleep in the same bed, most of the time they will, my two oldest. They were dead asleep. Horrible choice of word. They were asleep. And I went up and just gave them big hugs. Like, I had to just lay down with them for a second and give them hugs of like, you boys are so important. I could never. Hey, watch it if you want a good twist.
But it's one of those movies that, like, I watched it. I really like it. I don't want to watch the ending anymore.
Yes, I don't want to see that again. I think for you, it's interesting because, like, you get to see me experience the ending.
Yeah,
because I was like,
you even said if if he kills his kid, Howie, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You son of a
Yeah.
making me watch this movie. And I'm like, ooh, I'm like behind my laptop monitor, like, ooh, shit, he's going to be pissed.
Oh, it was awful in a great movie ending way.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the 2007 science fiction horror film, The Mist. One last fun fact I had about this movie that I wanted to add is Frank Darabont wanted to adapt this movie in 1980, and he wanted it to be his directorial debut when he made his first movie. And instead of making this, he made The Shawshank Redemption. So I think he made the right choice, and he was able to make this later on. So
yeah,
all right,
for sure.
That brings us to my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
Try to get through this quick because we're running a little long with that 100-minute 6 to midnight. So we decided, because of the ending that we just talked about, what if we did the top 5 most WTF endings to a movie we've ever seen? So these are the top 5 endings where we watched it and we were like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
What the if?
Yep.
So top 5. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can go first.
Do it.
I feel like we've had you go first most of our last couple ones, so I'm going to take this one.
You should do it.
Okay. One, I don't have The Mist on my list. Only, just like usual, if we've just talked about it for a whole episode, I don't put it on my list, even though it could and very well be number 1. And it's probably should be. It should be number 1. But I, just for the sake of wanting to talk about some other movies too, I do top 5 without that in there. I have one honorable mention, and that is Shutter Island. As an honorable mention, won't go into a lot of detail, but there's kind of a twist at the end that you're like, what the fuck? I think my list is, there's not a lot of movies that had like a profound, like, oh my fucking God, like the end of The Mist did. But my movies are more of like twist endings that
you didn't see coming.
Maybe that I didn't see coming. So maybe these are all WTF. Number 5, I'm gonna get flack for having this on my list, which usually I'm the one that has these on there, but I had The Village. M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, primarily. Now that you've seen it, you go back, the movie is nowhere near as interesting,
right?
Because but when you hadn't seen it the very first time, when you find out that they don't actually live in Pilgrim time, they
medieval
live in
time.
Medieval time.
It wasn't medieval, but you get it.
What a great Cable Guy quote. Yes, when you find out they're not in Pilgrim land, they actually live in the middle of modern times. That was like a what? Which M. Night Shyamalan always has something like that with his movies. So
typically does.
Which brings me to my number 4 biggest WTF movies ever, which I bet you'll have this on your list, maybe higher. A lot of people would have it higher, but it landed at number 4 for me. The Sixth Sense, another M. Night Shyamalan movie with a WTF. Find out at the end that freaking the main character, Bruce Willis, is one of the dead ghosts the whole time. You didn't know that. Alert. Yeah, well, when did that movie come out? 2000.
2000.
Is that
it might actually been 99. I think I was in high school.
Yeah. What a WTF moment for a movie where it completely changed. Like the second that you find out, you immediately, it feels like you're having like the Ratatouille flashback through the whole movie where you're like, what the, like every moment.
No way. I would have noticed that. And then you're thinking about it, you're like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Which makes the movie really interesting as a rewatch.
It is. It's great when you rewatch that movie the second time and you're like looking for stuff and you're like, okay, he really doesn't talk to anybody else in this entire movie.
Yes. That's a movie that it's so good, but I don't think I've watched it in probably 10 years because it scares the shit out of me.
It's a very creepy movie.
Yes. So, and we've talked about that on this before. Number 3, one of my favorite movies of all time. Originally, I had this higher on the list just primarily because I love the movie. But in terms of WTF endings, I have it at number 3. I have The Prestige. This Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale movie it's so good. And the
it's
ending,
wild. It's just wild.
so wild. It's the whole movie is this grounded, like, battle between like sworn enemy magicians who the whole time they are one-upping each other this whole movie, and very clear magic is not real because you see behind the scenes stuff, but the whole time they're trying to figure out how the other one does their own trick. And then at the end, the reveal, when you find out that Hugh Jackman's like new cool electricity teleporting trick is because he has a Nikolai Tesla machine that clones his body.
Yeah.
And when his body drops through the stage at the show, it drops into a case of water and he drowns him. So every day when he does this trick, essentially he offs himself while he clones. And he doesn't know if he's the one in the water or if he's the clone every day. He doesn't remember. When it shows Christian Bale down in like the basement or cave under the show, and he's like walking by all the water cases with the bodies. That was a what the fuck when I saw that first time. So good. Just ruined it for those who haven't seen it, but here we go. And then my number 2, which this could be number 1. I think there are folks that will have this at number 1. This ending, when I saw it in theaters, I legit I think I said WTF out loud. I'm
listening.
So freaking Saw 1 has the ending where this entire movie, you're watching these people who've been trapped in this disgusting cesspool, diseased, disgusting bathroom in the basement of some building where they're forced to cut their body parts off. And there's a dead body in the middle of the room right at the beginning of the movie, clearly dead body with pool blood everywhere. And the very end of that movie, the dead body stands up, peels the blood and like his makeup off, and essentially reveals that he is the killer and the one that trapped them there. And he's
Jigsaw.
Yeah, he is Jigsaw, and put himself in the middle of the room to watch it all, and then closes the door that they're never getting out. That was a holy shit. What did I just see?
Right.
Saw one of the best WTF moments of all time. And then number 1, one of my favorite horror movies ever. And I have it at number 1 because this is a horror movie that I watch every year. It's the number 1 horror movie that I recommend to friends because I know most people haven't seen it. But it just was such a mind-blowing twist. The Others. With Nicole Kidman. Basically the whole movie is she lives in this big mansion. She's got 2 kids. They never open up the curtains. They stay in the dark because the boy has a disease. He's allergic to sunlight. And the whole movie is creepy. The whole movie, it feels like this family is living in a haunted house and haunted things are happening, creeping them out throughout the movie. And then at the very end, you can't figure out what's going on the whole movie. And then the end, you find out that they are the ghosts in the house and they don't know it. And they are the ones that are basically haunting this house for other people that are living in it. So that was, when I saw it, I was like, holy shit, did not see it coming. I love that movie. I don't know why it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's my number 1 WTF movie of all time.
I like it. We have some similarities. Not all.
All right. Bring it on.
All right, my top 5 most WTF movie endings. I had one honorable mention just because I felt like I needed to put it on this list. Avengers Infinity War. What a bold ending choice, especially for a superhero movie. We're going to kill half of the heroes. They're straight up just going to die, and the bad guy's going to win. And of course, we all knew that's not going to stick, but it was pretty wild. I remember walking out of that theater like I absolutely loved the ending of that movie. Like I can't believe they did it, and it's amazing. So that's my honorable mention. And number 5, I had The Sixth Sense. Same reasons that you said. Like, hey, whole freaking movie, the dude was dead. I can't believe it. Blows my mind. Just crazy. So I won't talk anymore about that one. And number 4, I had the Korean film Old Boy.
Oh, I thought you'd go there. Okay, tell me why.
Okay, so I'm not talking about the Josh Brolin remake, which is dog crap. Don't watch it. The original,
I have seen that one.
The original, like 2003 Korean film. I went through this kick where I watched a whole bunch of like Korean, Japanese movies for a while. Old Boy was the best one I saw. I saw The Devil was pretty good too. If you've never seen that movie, it's a revenge thriller. It's wild. So basically, this guy gets put into a room like prison. It's a room though. It's like an apartment, and he's locked there for years, and he has no idea why. And he has no idea why he's there. And then all of a sudden one day, and I think it's like a decade. I think he's in this room for like 10 freaking years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden one day, the door just opens and he's free. And he's got to figure out like, what happened to my life? Why was I here? So the whole movie is him like trying to figure out what happened to him. He meets a young girl. They, like she's, I don't know, like 20 something. He's, like 40 now or 50 or whatever. They have relations, because he's like, she's helping him try and figure stuff out. There's this awesome fight scene where he like fights all these dudes in a hallway. It's badass. Yeah. You find out at the end, like the guy this guy wanted revenge, set this whole thing up, locked him in the room and then let him out. And the girl is his daughter. And he like the ending, he like has a mental break and he like cuts off his own tongue. And it's nuts. The ending's crazy. Bananas. And it's bananas. Like awful. I remember watching it and I was just like,
why did that guy want revenge on him? What did he do?
I don't even remember. What it was about.
That's pretty diabolical.
It was pretty diabolical. I mean, that guy gets killed, but it's pretty wild. Anyway, Old Boy. If you've never seen it, like, I'm sorry I spoiled it.
I've seen the Josh Brolin one, but
the original is so much better. It's nuts. Love it. Number 3, I had The Mist.
Oh.
For the gut punch ending that we just talked about, it's a bold choice. And man, it works well, and it's awful and amazing at the same time. So, The Mist. At number 2, and I was surprised you didn't have this movie on your list. But at number 2, I had Seven. Like, oh, what an ending. With Kevin Spacey lets himself get caught as the killer. He has the box delivered into the field. And it's Brad Pitt's wife's head. And he killed her and she was pregnant. And so the final murder of the 7 deadly sins is Brad Pitt killing Kevin Spacey out of wrath. And it's just this insane mind F ending that just is bananas.
I had only seen that movie this past year after us talking about it.
You'd never seen it?
I hadn't seen it prior to. I think maybe I saw it after the Batman, or maybe I saw it right before the Batman, which I guess was before we started doing pod. But I remember them talking about like Seven being like somewhat of a little bit of influence on the Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I was
I can see that with the Riddler. You kind of get that vibe. When that movie came out too, like social media wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew Kevin Spacey was the killer until that movie came out. Like he wasn't credited or anything. Nobody knew he was in it, and that's pretty wild too. That's crazy that they were able to pull that off. But that was number 2, and then number 1, a movie you mentioned. Like the first time I saw this, it blew me away. The original Saw. That's my number 1. when that dude got up off the floor and I started putting pieces together in my head, and I was like, that's the bad guy. Oh my God, he was in the room the entire time. The dead guy on the floor was the killer. What just happened? That dude cut his leg off.
Yeah,
And the guy's right there. And I was
it's
just like,
crazy.
it was nuts. It was the most bananas ending to a movie I had ever seen.
Yes.
And it just...
I originally had it listed as number 1, but I switched them with the others because I love the others so much. But Saw was the first movie that when you said, well, let's do this list, I was like, oh, Saw 1 for sure. Because that was fucking crazy.
Insane. I still can't believe it.
None of the other movies lived up to it and they kept trying to do like that.
The second one had a pretty wild ending too, but I mean, they all tried to do it somewhat, but that first one,
we didn't know anything about. We didn't know anything about the Saw world, so it was so good.
I liked the other one too, and I think I don't remember if it was it Jigsaw, was it that one too, where it was like you found out that whole movie actually took place before the first movie, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I thought that one was pretty crazy too, but yeah, that was that.
Saw. They did. I think they did a good job with some of those other ones of like being able to twist the lore and stuff and still give you some interesting.
Well, yeah, and then they made Saw X last year, and it was like the best reviewed one out of all of them. It's probably the best movie other than the first one in the whole franchise. And so now it's like, well, now they're just going to keep making them again. So
yeah, it's like the
I'm fine with it. I mean, I like them. I don't care. They don't cost anything.
Yeah, I'm not a body horror kind of guy, so like, just feel like, oh, there's a movie just so we can watch someone like cut their ear off.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
See,
well, that's a different kind of interest of mine.
Well, no, but I mean, like, I didn't like Hostel at all. I think those are trash.
Oh, I thought Hostel was really good because it was like fucking scary and felt very real. Like that could really happen.
See, that was just like, that's just watching people kill people. I didn't like that.
Yeah, there's something about Saw where it's like, I'm going to have to watch this guy force his hand into like a fucking pencil sharpener or something. Like,
that's interesting.
That's what I feel like when they make the Saw movies. That's the conversation they have. It's like, all right, what's something that would be effed up to make someone have to do?
Let's throw her into a pit of dirty needles.
Yeah. Okay. That was actually, see, it's just like Final Destination, where some of them you're like, that's a cool idea. Like the one where like he had to cut off a certain amount of pounds of his body.
Yeah.
To like weigh something down. That was wild.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Love that. We had some close ones.
Yeah. We had some similarities. Anyway, that's our top 5 WTF endings for the week. So that brings us to our newest segment. How rotten is your tomato? It's Kyle's turn to guess this week. I tried to stay a little on brand. So I went with some Stephen King movies, some horror movies, and I threw in a little Thomas Jane. So, all right.
Bring it on.
I got 5 pairs for you. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
By the way, Rotten Tomatoes, you know how sometimes they do like brackets where they do like tournament style stuff, like rate the better movies?
Yeah.
I think I remember I told you they did like best directors of the 20th century or 21st century not that long ago. They announced today and they put it out on their social media. They're doing the best movies of 1994, which is a year we've talked about quite a lot recently. So
that is fascinating.
I did.
We have really been in
one today.
That zone of years for movies. So,
and they did it because the 30th anniversary of Shawshank was actually yesterday. It came out 30 years ago yesterday. So,
that's why we're going to get an inevitable Forrest Gump for Shawshank.
I think that's probably how it's going to end up.
Love it.
I'll be mad.
Anyway,
or watch Forrest Gump lose early in Pulp Fiction versus Shawshank at the end. I could see it. All right. Our first 2 movies. Grounded in reality, Stephen King adaptations. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
The first movie, 1994's Shawshank Redemption versus 1986's Stand By Me.
Okay, well, very clearly, Shawshank Redemption is the higher. because if I remember right, it's like the highest rated movie on
IMDb.
IMDb. Oh, not Rotten Tomatoes. Ooh,
Right.
I'm gonna give it a 98 and higher, and then Stand By Me, I'm gonna give a 90.
Stand By Me's higher.
What?
At 92. Shawshank's an 89.
Oh my God! It's not
I
even
know.
in the 90s.
No.
Well, I guess like people are more interested in seeing a dead body than they
Stand
are.
By Me is a hell of a movie, though. It's
It's,
a good movie.
it's fucking
It's a good movie.
leeches. Ugh.
Oh man, that's the first thing I think about.
Yep. And,
Oh, but speaking of leeches, did you finish your audiobook of Jurassic Park?
I did.
Yeah.
I
Off
freaking
subject, but leeches.
I did love the book. It makes the movie so much more interesting.
Oh, the book is so much better.
And it's
So scary. It's so darker.
It's so darker. There's a lot of stuff from the book that like they used in book 2 or movie 2 and 3.
Mhm.
Anyways, we can move on.
Yes.
But yes,
I just wanted to ask.
Loved it.
All right. 1999's The Green Mile.
Oh,
versus 1999's The Sixth Sense. Both movies were nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards that year.
Oh man, I think, gosh, both those were such great movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say The Sixth Sense just because I remember that being kind of like a phenomenon when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Sixth Sense is higher, and Green Mile lower. Sixth Sense at a 85, and Green Mile at an 84.
Not bad. Sixth Sense is the higher movie at an 86.
Oh,
you were close.
Right there.
Green Mile was actually only a 79.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah, I guess I don't really remember it being like the Green Mile didn't feel like beloved like Shawshank and stuff.
Right.
That makes sense.
I agree.
Anyways.
All right. So we've got a couple Stephen King movies here. Are you ready?
Yep.
2017's It versus 1980's The Shining.
Oh, that is a great pair.
It is a good pair.
Because when it came out, people were like, fuck yeah, like this is how you do a movie. So I know it had a high rating, but people talk about The Shining like it's one of the greatest films in cinema history. So, which is funny because you hate it compared to
I hate it. It's terrible. Garbage.
I want to say it is higher because we're now in an age where like new things are getting higher ratings than old stuff. Just, I don't know, but I'm going to say Shining's higher. I think it is the better movie. Personally, don't kill me.
Facts.
It's a lot more watchable, rewatchable.
Facts.
But I'm going to say The Shining is higher and it is lower. Shining is, I'm going to give it an 89. I'm going to give it an 84.
It is higher.
Oh, well deserved. Love that.
At an 85. You were close.
Oh.
And The Shining's an 83.
Ooh, that's kind of surprising.
I know.
I thought critics loved that movie. That's interesting.
I don't know. I don't.
You don't care.
I don't like it.
You don't pay attention to anything.
It's way better. So, all right, here we go. I got one for you. All right, 2004's Thomas Jane starring The Punisher.
Oh, nice.
Versus 1990's Dolph Lundgren starring The Punisher.
Oh my God! If the Dolph Lundgren Punisher has better ratings reviews than one of my favorite superhero movies, I'm going to be so annoyed. I love Thomas Jane's Punisher movie. I don't know if it was just the time that movie came out or what, but it hit for me. It made me very interested in the Punisher. I know a lot of people didn't think he was. They feel like the one from the new Netflix show is more Punisher-like in that he's
Yeah.
like killing people and he's a
Yeah.
lot more like brutal. But I love the Thomas Jane Punisher movie. It's so good. I've watched it so many times. It's got to be way higher. I'm going to say it's like a 75.
Oh my God.
And I'm going to say that the Dolph Lundgren Punisher is probably like a 35.
Oh my gosh. Okay. 2004 Thomas Jane Punisher is higher
Okay.
at 29.
Oh, they're both so bad.
And Dolph Lundgren's at 25.
Oh my God, they're both
close.
so horrible. They're so bad.
They're close.
Which one do you think is the better movie?
Oh, the Thomas Jane one's better by far. I actually kind of like, and I know it's like a 4 on Rotten Tomatoes, the Punisher Warzone. Did you ever see that one?
Oh yeah,
it's so stupidly violent.
What's his name who just passed away? Guy from the new Star Wars show.
Yeah, God, what's his name's Ray Stevenson.
Stevenson, yeah.
Man, I actually liked that movie because it's so ridiculously violent.
I think I was, when that came out, I was so annoyed that they didn't give Thomas Jane another like sequel that I think I refused to watch it. I've seen scenes of it, but I haven't watched it from like start to finish.
I gotta see. I just gotta look and see what that one is.
I like Ray Stevenson at the time. Like what?
There's nobody. Oh, it's actually a 29. It's exactly the same as 2004's. Interesting. They're both 29s. Okay, I feel better about liking it now because I like both of them. But I like Warzone is like. Did you ever see like when they made Rambo? When Rambo came back and they made the movie and it was just called Rambo.
Yeah,
where he's like old, and it's like the most gratuitous, over the top, violent movie ever.
Yeah, he cuts the guy in half.
That's how Punisher Warzone is. There's a scene where a guy's like jumping from one roof to another, and Punisher hits him with a rocket launcher, and he just blows up into guts. It's so dumb, but it's just crazy. The whole movie's crazy violent. I love it.
It sounds like Machete, where it's like so wild, but
so crazy.
It's a dude movie.
Yeah.
There's a 10-minute like fan film of Thomas Jane.
Yes,
it's done like an actual well done movie. But if you like the Thomas Jane Punisher, there's a 10 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah,
really good of him being the Punisher in a short little scene. That's fucking badass. Go watch it. Anyways,
okay, last one. 2 movies from 1995. One movie that was on my WTF ending list. One that was almost on it. I actually had it on there at one point, took it off, so we didn't talk about it. But 1995's Seven versus 1995's The Usual Suspects.
Oh. I feel like Seven's got to be way higher. I give Seven's higher at a 78. Usual Suspects lower at a 65.
Usual Suspects is higher.
Wow.
At an 87.
Oh my God.
Seen that movie?
No. That's I'm guessing.
Oh my God. You've never seen The Usual Suspects?
Tell me the premise and I'll tell you if I've potentially seen it.
Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak, Gabriel Byrne, Stephen Baldwin.
What happens?
They're like all hired to do like a heist. Like they're different guys, and they're all hired to do a heist by a like super crime lord, and like it all goes wrong, and like the movie's like basically it's like an FBI agent or something questioning Kevin Spacey's character about what happened, and he's telling the story, and it's nuts. You've never seen it?
I've never seen it. I'm gonna watch it.
It has one of the most what the endings.
All right, I'll have to watch it.
Oh man, we should.
Did you like how I was like?
When you're like, oh, Seven's way higher. I'm like, wait a minute. We'll do an episode on that movie. I can't believe you haven't seen it.
You think it's that good?
Oh, that's a great movie.
Good for an episode, huh?
I will watch that.
Okay.
Every year.
I'll save it then for that.
And the ending's awesome.
You knew I didn't. You knew I never saw
I
it
can't
by
believe you
my
haven't seen it.
response by me
When I
saying,
wrote it,
"Oh, it's way
when I
lower."
make these lists, I'm like, I don't want to use movies I don't think he hadn't seen. And then I was like, oh, everybody's seen The Usual Suspects.
That's what my wife said about The Mist when I said we were watching it. She was like, "You haven't seen The Mist? Even I've seen The Mist." Now I want to be like, "Oh, if you
Anyway,
had seen it, you would have told me."
Usual Suspects was an 87. 7 was an 83.
Do you think that's the accurate
Yes.
rating?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
100%.
Who's
Usual
the director? Usual Suspects.
Brian Singer. He did this, and then he did X-Men because they hired him to do X-Men after he did this. And then he did X-Men. He do X-Men, they did X2, and then he didn't do X-Men: The Last Stand because he did Superman Returns.
I've got to watch this movie then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
As soon as we get out of spooky season,
yes, spooky season,
we're reworking the list, and it's getting added in because it's a great movie.
I love it.
It's funny because Kevin Singer directed a movie that Kevin Spacey's the main character in, and boy, neither one of them is getting much work anymore. So, same reason. Yeah. Perverts. Anyway, all right. That was fun. That was good. I can't believe you haven't seen the movie. Fun. I love it when we have these conversations while we're recording, and you're like, I haven't seen that movie, and I'm like, what?
It's a great clip. I get roasted online. You run a movie podcast and you've never seen a very well-known movie?
I mean, obviously, I watch more movies than you do, but
you've also had a couple more years to do so than I have.
Fuck you. Anyway, but I mean, like, but at the same time, if I have free time, I'm going to probably watch a movie, and you're going to play video. You're going to play video games
for sure.
It's a little different, but at the same time, I still play some video games, and you still watch a bunch of movies. It's okay, you know.
Yeah. You're more apt to watch the movies that are like on the fringe. For me, that like if it's on the fringe, I'm like, I'm not watching that.
Yeah, I just talked about how I went through a kick where I watched a bunch of Korean and Japanese movies.
Yeah. And
you ever seen Ichi the Killer?
You probably can't even talk about some of the other Korean movies that you like to watch.
I saw The Devil. That's a cool ass movie, actually.
I did write a note down to go look up what that was just to see what it looks like.
I think actually the guy that's in the main character in Old Boys is the bad guy in that, I think.
What I usually do after when we talk about movies that I've never seen, or you're like, "Oh, this is cool," like I usually immediately watch the trailer, like when we get off the pod.
Have you ever seen Audition, Japanese horror film?
Mm-mm.
It's crazy.
You're just thinking of all these random foreign films.
Yeah, Ichi the Killer is pretty weird too. I'm trying to think. All right. Anyway, that takes us to the end of episode 61 of the Movie Dads podcast. The 2007 science fiction horror movie, The Mist. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the like and subscribe. Click the bell so you get notifications when new episodes come out. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can find us on many podcast networks such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many others. You can also find some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We're back next week as we continue spooky season. With the You Need to See This Movie, which is a movie Kyle loves a lot more than I do, but I did enjoy it, and I'm excited to see it again for the first time in probably a decade. Silent Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Watching that for next week.
Nice.
So we'll be back 62 for
you
Silent Hill.
You didn't like it? Man.
It wasn't. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and
Maybe you'll like it.
It wasn't overly memorable.
Yeah, that's all. Did you play the games?
Played the first two.
I don't think I never played the game. So like, I feel like Resident Evil and Silent Hill were like you were one or the other. Like
I was Resident Evil.
See, I was Resident Evil. I never played the Silent Hill games.
But I like the first Resident Evil movie. I really liked too. I like the first one.
I have never heard that. That's interesting.
I like the first one. I actually enjoyed it a lot. The rest of them were just dumb, but
that's how I feel about the Resident Evil video games. I really like the first one. All the rest of them are crazy, except when they randomly came out with, I think 5, the first person like kind of Leatherface where they're in the house.
Village?
No, it's before Village. It's the one that did so well that they're like, we're gonna make Village. Dude, you haven't played Resident Evil 5? I think it's 5. Which I'll send it to you.
I played 1, 2, 2 is my favorite one. My favorite Resident Evil. It's one of the greatest games I ever played on Nintendo 64. Resident Evil 2. I played 3, which was Nemesis, right? And then I played Code Veronica on the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah,
Code Veronica. And then I played 0 on the GameCube, Resident Evil 0. And then I think that was kind of when I didn't play those kind of games anymore after that. Anyway.
I'm way off. It's not Resident Evil 5. It's like Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. It is so good. Like it's that feeling of like when in Texas Chainsaw Massacre when he's in the kitchen and the crazy family's there. It gives you that vibe. It's
they did a port of Resident Evil 4 for MetaQuest VR, which I've thought about getting like 50 times. And I'm like, I really think I should get that. But at the same time, I've played enough MetaQuest games where I will either get a headache or I will shit my pants because I'll be so scared playing. So I don't know.
I can't stand all the VR games that are coming out. It makes me sick. Like the second I play it, I get like the cold or the cold sweats when I play VR stuff. So
have you seen the one that's like on where there's a bunch of like videos and stuff on like Instagram and TikTok, and it's like sword and sorcery, and you're like shooting lasers and you're like cutting people's heads off and stuff. So I got that
you're like
game.
You're holding like you pick
you're
up
like stabbing a guy's head, and you put the head on the sword, and you're stabbing another guy. I played that one. I can't remember what it's called, and like within the 30 minutes of playing it, like I had such a massive headache because I was so like overstimulated and stuff. I like, had to stop for a while, but.
Yeah, there's no way I'd be able to do it.
Anyway, we're done rambling. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Bye.